than 10 minutes, so we can get out of here. So, first thing I would like to ask everybody is, how many of us play video games? Show of hands. That's a lot more than I expected. Now, for all of those who raise their hands, how many of them are first-person shooter games? Almost everybody's saying. The thing that I wanted to talk about today, though, is violence in video games and the correlation between the two. So, studies that were conducted by the APA in around 2018, they were said to have 8 out of 10 children that said that they only play games that were like similar to Call of Duty, Apex Legends, etc. And the 2 out of 10 were all fantasy role-playing games, meaning that there's not much difference. It's still violence incarnate. And the thing that I wanted to really go over in the beginning of my speech, kind of forgot because my computer died on me. So I'm kind of improvising a little bit of this. First one I'd like to describe here is an incident that happened in 1999. Most of us either remember this or heard about it in our history. And the reason for that is because nowadays in a lot of public schools, we have to do fire drills, we have to do tornado drills. Some places in the U.S. have to do earthquake drills, and almost every single school now has to do a school shooting drill because of what happened in April 20th of 1999, when Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, both 18 years old at the time, were the perpetrators of the Columbine High School massacre. Now, in 1993, there were 2 video games that came out that were among the most violent of video games to ever come out in history, which were Mortal Kombat and Doom. And a lot of us know many of these games. They've been remade and they've been rebooted. And nowadays we have Doom Eternal, and nowadays we also have Mortal Kombat 11. Things like this, if you've ever played these games, are among the most violent games I've ever seen in my life. And I play some pretty good games too. I play Apex Legends, I play Call of Duty. Call of Duty is kind of, somewhat spectacular in terms of realism. If you've ever played the second to newest, or third to newest, actually, Call of Duty, you remember a scene where you play as an SAS strike squad, and you go into a Muslim safe house, and you have to kill pretty much every single person in that whole house, and some of which are kind of unpleasant. And I know this because I played it myself, and my little cousin, 11 years old, he said he played it too. And I was like, there's no way that your parents are letting kids play these games like this. So this is what I did my persuasion speech on today, is because I want to change that perspective. I want to make sure that, as informative as it may be, some things like that are just not okay. And they do have contingencies put in place to make sure that some of that blood and gore is maybe limited a little bit, but the concept is still there. You're shooting other people and you're giving into that violence or that aggression. And one of the things that I wanted to go over real quick is whenever President Trump was elected in the presidency, one of the first things that he wanted to do was to not only limit the amount of exposure that children get to violent video games, but almost to ban them almost completely. Anything that was either rated R or rated M, mature or restricted, we wanted to completely ban them for children of all ages. If you were a parent that had a child that was underage, then you were not allowed to buy those games. Even if you say that they were for you, then that was supposed to be the ban. And things like that were to turn out okay, but however, we go back to our roots whenever we say that aggression and our learning capabilities are somewhat parallel, because in 1961 there was an experiment conducted by Albert Bandura. And we learned about this a little bit in psychology, and I wanted to kind of include it a little bit into my speech because it interested me that kids who've seen an adult display acts of aggression to a doll and replicate it almost. Kind of made it seem like maybe there is a correlation between if you were to see something on a video game as opposed to if you were to see something in real life. The same things are to be a little similar. And most of the time, if you're playing a video game and you see something that's violent in a way, it sort of taps into your aggression, your inner aggression. And I know that there's a lot of us that have a little bit of times where we get like to get mad and we like to act it out a little bit, but you know, of our baser instincts, we like to just kind of hold it back a little bit because that's unethical. And I see it all the time whenever I play video games. There's a 13-year-old kid that likes to yell at me just because he thinks I'm not good at a video game. But I don't care about it because one day that child's gonna learn that, you know, maybe it's not okay to get mad at people for unrealistic things. The people who conducted the Columbine High School massacre, they were said to play of those two video games that came out in 1993, and about 90% of their time was used up by playing Doom, and they wanted to conduct studies on why that was happening and why they wanted to do such a thing. Another study was conducted in 2012, Sandy Hook. Most of us remember that because I was in school when that happened, and automatically every single school shut down for the rest of that week just because we wanted to make sure that there was nothing else that was to happen because all of us were scared, and I get it. You know, the man killed 26 people, and 6 of those were teachers. You know, so it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a child, if you're a teacher, or if you're just a random pedestrian. A lot of those people were victims of that crime, and most of these people that conducted these crimes were among of the same age group. The two that conducted the Columbine massacre were 18 at the time, and they attended that same school. Adam Lanza was 20. It kind of goes to show that you know, if you're playing some type of violent video game, then you're going to have violent tendencies. However, I want to change that because these guys, they had violent tendencies before they ever had, you know, played video games in the first place. I know for a fact that some people may have things that they have in their life, in their home, personal lives, that are being done to them every single day. Mental abuse, physical abuse, things that their parents do to them, things that their friends do to them, insecurities, all types of things that can correlate to why they've done these things. Also, it's not just video games that are, you know, making this idea happen. It's also the media, movies, things that happen every single day in the news. Everything can correlate to why, you know, these people do what they do. And it's not, these are just really two good examples because they were among 2 of the biggest. I know that there was a lot of school shootings happening in like Texas and Arkansas and Nebraska. It's dumb, really. And you don't hear about these guys playing any video games though, but you know, that's you know, whenever you're a young teenager, the one thing that they point to really is what you're doing in your free time. If you're playing video games, and if those video games are violent, then that's going to be why. And you don't ever think about why they do what they do or how it happens when it happens. But as far as we know, it just happens. And it's not the video game's fault. It's either the home or the school or your peers. Sometimes you just gotta limit your exposure to certain things that are being a little toxic to you. However, all of that nonsense aside, Though the thing that I wanted to kind of get to is the structure of how things should be coming in the future. And I know that parents are practicing this every single day, is limiting screen time. Screen time is a good thing to try to limit, because most kids nowadays are glued to technology. And if it's got a screen on it and you can touch it and you can use it and you can do whatever you can with it, that's gonna be the one main priority they do whenever they get home from school, or, you know, you're sitting there and they're bored, or you're in the waiting room at the doctor's office. They're gonna ask for your phone, they're gonna ask to watch TV, all types of things, and every single thing that you get onto with technology happens to have a certain level of violence to it, whether or not it's YouTube, whether or not it's a random movie you're watching, or even if you see something on the news. If you catch a glimpse of it, you're gonna remember it. And children in their time are gonna remember every single thing that they see. And that's kind of all I wanted to say about as far as what the plan of action should be, and the forecast really come after, if these things are taken into account, because, you know, maybe one day we don't have to blame video games for every single bad thing that happens in this country, or any country for that matter. Because in this country, you hear about this stuff all the time, and it's been happening since as early as 1999, and it has just as big of an impact on our lives as it did then, as it does now. And I hope I've provided some insight into why I think that video games shouldn't be the victim of any of these violence acts. And maybe one day we'll limit our screen time altogether, and we can probably go outside and catch some vitamin D, catch some rays, stay outside, exercise, things that have absolutely nothing to do with video games.